Greetings, brave adventurers! My name is FoxyBard, and I'm here to tell you some stories of, well, other people having bad situations in RPGs. That's what we do on Friday. If nothing else, we can get a little bit of schadenfreude out of it, but hey, every once in a while, we can learn things. Like in today's stories, I have for you 2 examples of how to be an ally in the exact wrong way. And this is 2 different kinds of allies we're talking about here, so pay attention. The second one of these does come with a trigger warning. There's some pretty heavy stuff in it, but there will be timestamps below so you can skip it if you would like to, and I will, as always, put them up on screen during that part. But enough of me waffling on, which I always do for way too long. Let's get to the stories. Our first story comes to us from the user... I'm not sure if I can say that. I'm just not going to say that. You can read it. And it's titled, DM bullied a disabled member from my party. And in this story we have someone being incredibly ableist, treating a disabled person as less because they were actually good at playing the game. I'll let them tell it. Tale, start. I was hosting a homebrew game, even though I was a player, every Tuesday night with a bunch of friends. Pretty weird, but it was my only day off and I was working late at a restaurant, so we decided it was that day of the week. We were a pretty big, yet functional party of 7 players, and this particular DM was experienced enough to manage us all. Ooh, are you sure? 7's a lot. Some months later, my boss asked me if I could help on breakfast for some time since there was a cook that just would stop showing up, and I agreed. The woman I was helping on this shift was an old lady, late 50s, maybe early 60s, but as we worked together, I realized she was a total geek. I was about to talk about the campaign, but as soon as she heard D&D, her eyes went wide open and she asked if her son could join. It was his dream to play, and his brother promised him he would eventually, but said brother never had the time because of his work. Since I was the one hosting the game, I agreed instantly. The more, the merrier. She then warned me that her son was disabled and he might feel insecure the first times, which wasn't really an issue for me. I consider myself as a good host, and it's really easy to feel comfortable at my place. I pay for the pizza, the beer, drink, snack, everything's on me. So I asked my GM that same day, and he said it was okay. The next Tuesday, she and her son, which we will call Alex, were in my parking lot, but I realized that Alex was hesitant about getting out of the car. I went outside to greet him and noticed that he brought his lunch even though he knew it wasn't necessary. At that point, I was able to estimate his level of anxiety. He was about 25, and the way he was talking and moving, I figured out that he was bullied a lot when he was younger. 5 sessions later, Alex was the most comfortable at the table and pretty much one of the best players. And now, brace yourselves for the bad part. My DM, who we'll call John, started to get irritated by the fact that Alex was solving puzzles at an incredible speed, kept the narrative going faster than he expected, and literally every session became improvised halfway through. Alex was a beast. All of the other members didn't seem to mind and actually liked him. John talked to me in private, saying that he felt like Alex became the main character and we were just his sidekicks, which I found absurd. John then went saying the same thing to all of the players, which, at one point, convinced them. The next couple sessions, John started to literally ignore Alex at the table, and by one point, told me that 8 PCs is too much for him, which could have been true, but I knew this guy DM'd parties of 10 in the past. I confronted him about it, and he said he just didn't want Alex in the game. Since I was the one hosting the game, I told him to shut up and deal with it. And so he did. If that sounds ominous, it is. By this point, he told everyone that he wanted him to leave the game, and if Alex wouldn't move, he'd kick me out of it so someone else could host. The next session, John turned my character into a vampire, which I thought was pretty cool, but since I didn't have a coffin, my character would just die in the sunlight. Alex got the idea to hide me in the party chest. The PCs didn't know I was turning, they just thought I was dead, until we could find a proper burial site. So the party chest became my coffin, which I still laugh about to this day. But then my DM came up with a new rule. Since I was turned but not released from the one who bit me, I had to do everything my master commands me, and he asked me to, you guessed it, kill Alex's PC for no apparent reason. I responded that since he's the one who got me a coffin and saved my life, I would never harm him. My character was loyal as Fox. That was literally on my sheet. The session afterwards, Alex got cursed by a witch. The curse? You can't gain anyone's trust or loyalty. Since it happened after I was turned, I wasn't a living being anymore, which made me unaffected by the curse. And then, the final session, John turned Alex into a werewolf and said,
There, you guys hates each other now.
Me, are you serious? John,
Yeah, it's a well-known fact that vampires and werewolves are at war.
Me, you never said anything about werewolves, vampires, war in your world. John,
I just made it up. Now, Alex, you've just lost your last friend and only friend in the party. Do you leave now, or are you waiting for him to kill you?
why is he southern? Alex started shaking and I saw tears coming out of his eyes. I then stopped the game and told John to fox off, and it was the end of our campaign. To this day, Alex and I are still friends, but he never played D&D again. He said that being bullied in-game sucked as hard as in real life. I tried to convince him to join me in a game that I DM, but he never agreed. TLDR, experienced DM bullies a disabled kid out of D&D only because he was a good player. Tail end. So, this guy is a piece of crap, all around, start to finish, front to back, top to bottom, left to right, inside to out, I don't know. I'm running out of metaphors. The point is, this is an insolent human man-child who got so upset with a new player, with a kid who was great at the game because he solved his puzzles too fast. And so he went on to ruin the hobby for this person who seemed like he loved it. Okay, that was a lot. Sorry, I'm actually a little bit angry at this guy. Lessons to learn. Talk to people if you have a problem with them. Be upfront about your internal issues. If you think that maybe your game is too easy, discuss that with your players, see what they think. All the standard stuff applies. Don't do this. We good? We good. Next story. Our next story, this is the one with the trigger warning, timestamp is on the screen, is by the user Coil Spinner, and it is titled, A Very Good Ally. That's sarcasm, if you hadn't picked up on that. And it does have a content warning specifically for transphobia, misgendering, and gaslighting. If you're not good with any of that, feel free to skip. I will never judge you. Tale start. So, I joined this campaign at the behest of a friend. They'd had someone leave, and it wasn't clear if the absence was going to be long-term or short. I agreed to join up as essentially a guest player, which worked for me given my history. I'd spent time away from D&D after a real awful campaign had soured me on the game. During that previous campaign, there was a metagaming min-maxer who got real aggressive with me and my character. The DM of that campaign also railroaded everything towards their own Game of Thrones set pieces and had some real foxed up fascist views. Suffice to say, I left. This is relevant because Sally, my friend, was in that previous campaign too. When I left, we stayed in touch, which is how I joined this new campaign. I decided to try out the same character concept I'd tried in the previous game. For context, my character is a kobold who died but got resurrected by the fading power of a Draco Lich's phylactery. Said little kobold has memories of all their previous lives, both male and female, along with flashes of the Draco Lich's life. As a result of this, my character uses they/them pronouns, and as a trans woman, I use she/her pronouns. Now, let's introduce Brock. Brock's playing a tabaxi, homebrewed, air quotes, artificer. As far as I could tell, he wanted to be Percy from Critical Role, but as an even bigger curmudgeon. Already not great. Anyway, this homebrew, air quotes, artificer, basically has a gigantic tank and can convert spell scrolls into ammunition with said spells imbued in them. The older, the better. And I thought ammunition for guns was expensive in RPGs. My character's introduction involved them leading the rest of the party through the ancient ruins of their home. They shared it with a group of powerful but long-deceased wizards, full of ancient scrolls. This is where we introduce our final antagonist. Let's call her Kay. Kay played a warlock who seemingly existed to be a chaotic jerkhole. So, Kay concocts a plan with Brock to rob my character's home. This is at the end of my second session with the group. Between sessions 2 and 3, Brock goes,
"Hey, I'm gonna steal from your home. I'm sorry, it's what my character would do."
I was trying to do Brock Simpson from the Venture Bros. It probably wasn't working. I expressed my reservations, but since I'm new, I didn't flat out shut him down. The next session, I make every attempt to stop him since he's not hiding his intentions, and my character's got a fairly high wisdom. I burn spell slots to cast Expeditious Retreat. I tell him repeatedly it's not okay. Then Brock tries to outright steal scrolls from my gosh dang house right in front of me. Wait, maybe he should be Brock from Pokemon. Our DM encourages it because he's the next Matt Mercer, in his own mind anyway. I attempt to intercede and stop him. Fail the roll. I get stiff-armed out of the way while nobody else in the party says a foxing word. I draw my crossbow, level it at him, tell him to stop. One thing about this character, I'd mentioned to the DM I'm cool with failed wisdom rolls, meaning that the Draco Lich inside my character's mind gets to influence an action. So instead of just an idle threat, I almost murk Brock's character. He proceeds to then gaslight my character, saying it's not really my home. Then he throws a tantrum and has his character run off, alone. No, Venture Bros was the right pick. I should have quit then. Instead, I rolled up a new character because the tension between Brock and my character felt terribly reminiscent of the problem player from the previous campaign. Not wanting to deal with that, I'd opted to just start fresh. After being, quote, on call for 2 whole sessions where I sat at the table and did nothing, the DM had planned this wilderness travel weeks ago, man, and thus couldn't possibly introduce me until the players found his cool set piece he wanted. I finally start playing again. This time, I'm playing a half-orc bard who shares my same pronouns, she, her. Brock immediately misgenders me and my character. Nobody steps in. He'd done so with my previous character, blaming it on the they/them. A few sessions of this go by, and as we're waiting on a player to start the night's session, Brock proudly says that he's decided to copy my kobold character and play them in a different campaign. He says, "It's such a cool character and it'll help me practice pronouns." He misgenders both me and my character multiple times that same session. I snap and yell my pronouns. The Warlock, K, pulls aggro on a group of non-hostile NPCs when I close into range to see what's going on with them. When I press their player on Y, they give no reason. This is when I've had enough and bail. I toughed it out for my friend, but at this point, I'm just foxing done. The DM seemed surprised when I mentioned that he'd help foster an environment where I felt profoundly unsafe at his table, saying he's done this for 2 years. Wow, 2 years. Whoa. And never had a complaint. As for Sally, we're okay, but I'm never joining a campaign she's in ever again. Tail end. This one hits a little close to home, if that weren't kind of obvious. Okay, I'm gonna give a speech. I wrote it in advance. I promise this is from the heart. Being an ally is more than saying, I support you. It means speaking up on our behalf. Trans people are ignored and brushed off when we voice our concerns, so sometimes cis people have to step up to that plate. Whatever amount of hate you would get from it, we'd get double. Pronouns really do matter. It's a negation of yourself and sets you back as if to mean your transition didn't mean anything. It's been years and years since the last time I was really misgendered, but I still remember that sting. It's like having someone stabbing a needle into your brain and leaving it there. Can you live with it? Yeah, I guess, but stab me enough times, and I'm going to get upset. Alright, pithy speech over. Joke time. With that many Critical Role references, how could this story be anything but horror? Yay, members are bad, controversy, give me clicks, engagement. Nothing against you, Matt. It's just easy jokes. Anyway, the party. Welcome to the group. We're going to rob your home. The kobold. Maybe don't? The party. Well, I'm gonna throw a conniption fit and run off into the woods on my own because you were not going to let me literally walk all over you. Ugh. I can't even make this funny. It's just mean. I think I've said all I want to say. That will do it for this week. I hope you learned a lot from these examples of how not to be an ally. Please never do any of this. Ever. I will be very disappointed in you. And you don't want to make Foxy disappointed in you, do you? I didn't think so. Don't forget to like the video if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so, ring the bell notification icon if you would like to be notified every time I upload a new video, leave me your comments and thoughts down below in the comments section, and last but not least, do not forget that there is a FoxyBard Discord server. You can share stories there and meet other people to talk about RPGs and maybe find yourself a new group. That was like one breath. Whew. While I catch my breath, let's douse the fire and get back to our own adventures. Hey, I'm gonna steal from your home. I'm sorry, it's what my character would do. We turn this frying pan into a drying pan. This is bad.